Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Desk Drop. So this week, it's my pleasure to announce I've got Alice Courcy, CMO at Cognism with me. Hey Alice, how are you?
Hi Alex, yeah, good, thanks. Excited to chat to you about this.
Yeah, nice one. Thanks for coming on. Alice, whereabouts in the world are you at the moment?
I am in the Cotswolds, so I've made a bit of a move out of London and enjoying, the sunny countryside down here.
Nice. So for anyone listening outside of the UK, if you don't know the Cotswolds, it's one of the most beautiful places in the UK. I'm very jealous. I'm still locked down in London, but hopefully that'll lift soon. But yeah, again, nice to see you again, Alice. Thanks for taking the time to join me on this one. Cool. So Alice, for those of you listening, Alice, can you tell us a little bit more about your role and Cognism?
Yeah, sure. So I'm CMO at Cognism. I joined about 2 years ago now when we were around 3 million in revenue. And we've scaled now to over 11 million in revenue. We had like a very small marketing team at that point, and I guess the job spec was go and create a repeatable marketing engine. We're now pleased to say at a point where we're sort of delivering 50% of that new business revenue number month on month, which is great. And in terms of Cognism and what we do, we're a globally compliant B2B contact data provider at our core, but we have a whole suite of products which basically are designed at enabling go-to-market leaders to reach and engage with their next new business opportunity.
Very cool. Awesome. It's been a real pleasure watching you guys scale. I think the growth is phenomenal from 3 to 11 is pretty incredible. So congrats on hitting those major milestones.
Thanks.
So today we're going to focus on sales and marketing alignment. So we're talking about sort of this match made in heaven and hell. How about we kick things off just with a real simple one then? So how do you guys align your BDRs and your marketing team over at Cognism?
Yeah, so it's been an interesting one for us in terms of where that role sits. And I think it's something I'm still asking pretty much anyone I can, whenever I can, is, where do you feel like BDRs sit best? Is it marketing? Is it sales? I think the best answer I've ever had to this was like, it should be where whoever cares the most. And then the second point to this is something we've uncovered at Cognism, and I think is equally as important, is it should be where it will appeal to your talent and your BDRs as well in terms of progression. So I guess what I mean by that is what we found, we'll go on to cover this a bit later, but with our MDR role, which is sort of a hybrid role, when we had that sitting within marketing, because we did trial that for a while, it wasn't seen as, as exciting a role for their career progressions because they came into Cognism to work in sales, and just by nature of it sitting within marketing, that kind of wasn't what they signed up to. So that is a couple of things to think about when you're trying to work out where to position the role. So at Cognism, it actually sits under our inside sales director, Dave, and he runs all of the BDRs, whether they be MDRs, SDRs, senior SDRs, that all sits under Dave. I guess how it works, though, with that in mind, in terms of aligning with marketing, is that we tie our features very closely together. So what they're measured on is what we're measured on as well. So sales qualified opportunities and revenue is very much tied to their success and our success. So it means that we have a very key stake in everything that they're doing. They'll keep us accountable. If our marketing qualified leads aren't hitting the mark and our SQA rate falls, then Dave will be the first one to call me up and be like, Alice, sort your stuff out. Like, what's going on? Let's look at what's broken. And equally, if our inbound SLA drops off a cliff, I'll call Dave and say, Dave, what's happening? Like, we need to sort this out because inbounds are a huge source of our revenue and opportunities. So that's, I guess, where it sits at Cognism.
Nice one. So you mentioned SQOs and revenue. Is that pipeline opportunity revenue, or is it close one revenue?
So ultimately, our BDRs and SDRs and MDRs are measured on sales qualified opportunities. So are my marketing team, but revenue is obviously the end goal. So I am measured on the output, the revenue, as is Dave. So I guess it ties it all together. We know that the SQOs lead to revenue. And so we try and incentivize everyone along that path.
Yeah, nice. I'm not seeing enough organizations doing it that way. I think it's the best metric to work towards, because that's what we're ultimately aiming towards, is revenue on the board, right? And I think too many companies are still talking about this concept of MQL being the gold standard for marketing. How do you feel about that?
For me, an MQL is a leading indicator, and that is all, to be honest. I think there's a lot of things that can go wrong with using that as your key metric. It's so open to people abusing it, for one. You can generate MQLs depending on the definition of MQL, which obviously you need to agree within your company, but that in itself is definitely not necessarily going to lead to the output that you need as a business. And I also don't feel like having that as a metric for marketing gives marketing as good a stand within the business as they should have. So if we're talking opportunities and revenue, the board listens to that. James, my CEO, listens to that. I have more, I just have more of an argument for anything that I want to talk to about to the senior stakeholders, because we're all talking the same language and it is the end result. So I would never have it any other way. It's a leading indicator, and that's all basically.
Music to my ears. Certainly how we're doing things here. I'd like to dig into that progression bit a little bit more. You mentioned BDRs, and often BDRs can be younger, often just graduated from college or university, or perhaps made a career change and wanted to get into like software sales. How do you guys manage the progression of BDRs? You've got quite a lot of them. So how do you kind of manage that progression? At Cognism, I'd love to know.
So a lot of trial and error has gone into this. Obviously, we started out, even when I joined 2 years ago, we only had probably, like 6 or 7 BDRs, and now we've got maybe 30. So a lot more. And I guess the biggest thing that we've always been good at doing at Cognism is documenting everything. So even when we were trialing out what worked best, we created very clear progression plans, and that was very transparently communicated across the business in the interview process. It's part of their onboardings, it's part of the personal development reviews that they have. It's always very clear what the path to progression is. So for us now, that looks like coming into the business as an SDR, then the next step up to that would be a senior SDR. Then you can go either 2 ways. You can become a team lead of an SDR team, or you could become a MDR. And the MDRs and team lead SDRs are the only 2 that then qualify for becoming a BDM when an open position becomes available. And so that's how it looks at Cognism. I think some of the things that we've learned along the way in terms of ensuring that we ramp people effectively and progress them effectively across the roles are, well, first of all, that we onboard them effectively. So we literally get them on the phones on day 3. So there's a really clear onboarding program in place. Again, all documented. Every role has a playbook. That playbook, again, is transparently shared across the business, has all of the information that they need. We really believe in having these team leads in place for SDRs. So they don't carry quota. They focus on just training and enabling the SDRs or the MDRs within their teams as well. So I think that's been really important. Specialization as well. So when I first started 2 years ago, inbounds and marketing qualified leads were all handled just by the SDR team, and event leads, there wasn't anyone specialized in what we'd call all the marketing demand. We've now specialized that role, so that's really helped as well. So SDR is solely focused on outbound and outbound alone, and then that marketing development role takes on the inbounds and then also all of the other marketing demand that we generate. And then we've gone one step further, literally this month, to further specialize the MDR role, and we now split it so we have direct inbound only. That's all they deal with, is all of the direct inbound requests that we have, whether that be through Drift, the website. And then we also have the rest of the MDRs are focused on the other marketing demand that's generated. So the MQLs essentially.
Wow, very cool. That's a nice machine you've got built there. Day 3 on the phones, that seems quite early. How do you get someone prepared in 2 days to get calling?
I think Dave's view on this, and I guess I would agree. I did a cold calling day because we're, again, coming back to this whole alignment piece. One thing I should say is I'm a big believer in is walk a day in each other's shoes, like understand what it means to do the other person's job. So I obviously can say to the cows come home, it's really hard to cold call, like it's really hard to be an SDR or an MDR, but having never done it, you really can't empathize. So we in marketing join the cold calling days and we call up our leads. So it gives us good insight into kind of the quality that we're delivering to the sales team, but also to understand that like fear and dread that you might get. Well, for us, because it's just not our bag, right? So we're trying to learn. But that's why for Dave, it's about breaking down the barrier of being scared to get on the phone. Don't make it into this big thing that you need to be super trained up to do. Keep it really simple. Like we don't believe in scripts. We want to try and keep things as simple as possible and give them room to be creative, and not make the phone something to be scared of. And by saying you can get on the phone on day 3, I think that helps break down that barrier.
Wow, I love that. It's kind of like the Brian Tracy eat I think it's, what's the book, Eat the Frog, which is like just get the worst bit out of the way, because it's the bit that BDRs specifically fear the most, particularly if you've never done it before. Makes total sense. Just get it out in the open and make sure it's okay. For everyone listening, if you're in marketing, maybe get on a cold calling session with your BDRs. I love the fact that you guys are doing that. That's incredible. Nice. Alrighty. So look, you've, as you mentioned, you had 6 or 7 BDRs when you started 2 years ago. So you scaled it up to 30. What have you learned through that process of scaling a BDR team?
Yeah, so we've learned a lot. I think so. Some of the things I've already touched on, but are really important. So make sure that you have all of the documentation in place. You have really clear playbooks for every role. You'll get to a point where you should specialize those roles as well, where things are breaking. You'll know, like conversion rates dropping off a cliff. Those types of things are the indicators of, okay, we need to specialize, because focus does generate results. Like there's no doubt about it. Other things are, I guess, in terms of culture, so a culture of continuous learning and incentives have been really important. I think at times we've been, especially during lockdown, we've kind of forgotten that. So we've really tried to up our game on that. So all of our SDRs, BDRs have access to Sales Impact Academy, which we find is great for them. We had run a Rolex incentive for last year for our SDRs. We've now just launched President's Club, which goes across the whole sales team. So I think ensuring that you've got like motivational levers that you can pull as well to keep people incentivized on the career progression is important. Really ensuring everyone's aligned on what the career progression looks like. It's documented, communicated, super transparent. That ensures that people feel motivated to be in those roles and they feel like progression is happening, as well as communicating how the business is going, and if there's any like changes, things are going to happen faster or slower. Like just being very transparent, I think, is important. And I guess one of the other things I would say, you need to have a performance management process as well, clearly outlined and defined, because not everyone is going to perform all the time. Doesn't mean that they might have a bad month, but we found that the hard way, that where we didn't really have a process in place for that, we ended up having sort of poor performing reps and roles for like 3-4 months, and that can have a huge impact on your bottom line. So really putting in place, like we now have a sales coach who works directly with any one who sort of hits the boundary of going into a performance progression plan, and then we have that plan documented. It's transparent, it's shared, it's in their playbook. They all know when it happens, what triggers it, and then what we do. And we put a lot of emphasis on ourselves to do things to get them back to where they need to be. So that's something else that I think has been really important. And then I guess it's just having a plan for, like, sounds really simple, but who they're prospecting to, like who they're targeting, and the data, and how you're going to do recycling of data and accounts, how you're going to surface better and more opportunities for that team, and how you're going to prioritize those accounts. And so you do need to start introducing some technology into your processes as you scale as well.
Nice, very cool. I love the performance management's a really tough one, and I've certainly been in those situations in the past where you look at the numbers and they dip, and you think, well, what am I going to do? And it's very ad hoc. Was having something which kind of says, this is what triggers it, here's how we're going to manage it, and hopefully put someone back on the right path is takes a lot to put that in place. What are the things that you guys had to do, or were there moments of realization that you thought, gosh, we've got to fix this? And what are the things you had to do at the beginning to make sure that you got it right?
So a couple of things are quite interesting on this. I'll talk a bit about what happened when we introduced the MDR role on this point, actually, because we knew we needed to specialize and have someone focus solely on the marketing generated demand. And what we really didn't know, where should that role sit? Like, should we just let people apply ad hoc from SDR roles into that role? Should it be a promotion? Should it sit in marketing? Should it sit in sales? All of these things we just didn't know. So we actually just said, okay, we'll just let people apply to the role. And then it can be at any stage. They have to be performing, but at any stage they can apply. What we ended up happening was having people who didn't really enjoy cold calling or prospecting go for that role because it was deemed easier because there's a level of interest there. And so we had, I guess, not the strongest candidates in a new role, which we were trying to build out. Absolutely the wrong way to do it. Like, we've very clearly found out, if you're trying anything new, you need to put your best foot forward. So you need to put your top performers into that so that you can quickly learn if it's something that's going to work or not. So that was interesting for us, because then we needed to look at how did we performance manage that whole piece. And it was like a clear trigger that we needed a process in place for it. And we worked really closely with a sales trainer on what best practice looks like in terms of when, how, and then what you do to overcome performance that's dipping. Because there's so many, I mean, Dave would always be the first to say the first thing you should look at is what's going on outside of work for them, because oftentimes it's not anything related to work. And that, like, we don't always want to be looking straight away at saying that they're not trying hard enough or whatever else, and then you can go to your metrics. And at Cognism, I think it's quite unique in that we do have input metrics. So there's activity levels we expect from our reps, but that they're not beholden to those. We really are just output focused, and that can be good and bad. What we have learned is to be a bit more enforceable on the input metrics to help with ensuring more people don't fall into the trap of having a really bad month and then going on the progression plans, because actually there's a reason why people need to have certain activity levels. So that's something else that we have had to sort of pivot towards. I think when you've got a small team of 7, you've hired some really bright people, the company's small, you're growing really fast, everyone's involved and engaged, you can kind of trust people more. But as you grow, and now we're remote, you just have to actually put in place some very key benchmarks. So that's
I think for me, it's, I love that. And it's about just telling them what good looks like. You know, if you're slightly below or slightly above, then as long as the numbers are there, but you've got to give people the guidelines, because it's really tough. Otherwise, you don't know what the expectations are. Nice. Well, look, you guys have the slightly unfair, I wouldn't call it an unfair advantage, but it kind of is in a way, in that you're using your own product, probably drinking your own champagne in a sense, right? So the 2 questions really: how do you get your particularly BDRs, new starters, to understand who they're selling to, even though they're kind of selling to themselves or their boss in a sense? And how do you guys use data to sort of create target accounts or target lists and make sure you're going after the right people?
Yeah, so in terms of getting our new starters to understand who they're talking to, it's quite easy for us, because we just literally have sessions with John, who's our sales director, and Antoine, our RevOps, because that's a key persona for us, and then myself from the marketing side, and we talk to all of the pains and the reasons why we use Cognism, how we use it. All, again, it's all documented in their playbooks. We have videos and tutorials on it, so they can go back and we're just very open. And like, literally, I'll get Slack pings from an SDR probably daily, and they might have just want a help word, a line of an email, or there's a specific pain point they want to ask about, and everyone's just open to sharing, and we're trying to share as much as possible. So that's one thing. And then in terms of how we use our own data, so that has we've got much more mature in that, I guess, as we've grown again. So originally it just started with, okay, fine, we can just like pull. Our ICP is pretty broad. It was just certain industries, company size, because we weren't really selling up market at that point, so it was much more SMB focused, and certain job titles, and those lists would just become put into sales. Well, it was just automatically pulled in Salesforce, put into the reps' names, and pushed into the Engage tool that we have, and they started running those cadences and sequences. But what we have now we've got a team of 30, we need to get much more forensic and clever with what we're doing with the data. So it's not good enough just to know who to target, but we want to know when to target, but also we want to know who's going to stay with us the longest as well. So we've now at a point where we've got enough data in our CRM, we use Salesforce to understand we can score a customer basically on 3 things: propensity to buy, how long they'll stay with us, and then and how much they're likely to pay us. So 3 things. It's basically like, do they fit to buy? How much will they pay us? And then, if they're going to stay with us a long time. And so the things that we look at and score on is company size, the annual revenue of the business, the CRM that they use, that's a technology piece, the sales headcount, the marketing leader headcount, and RevOps and sales leader headcount. So we put all of that into a model. Obviously, all that data is being used, like we find all that data in Cognism, and then we use a model on top of it. And then we give our SDRs 200 to 300 accounts based on the top scoring accounts, and then overlaid on top of that, because that doesn't still tell you when someone might want to buy, is intent data. So we're just launching actually our integration with Bombora, so we have that within the system, and an ability to have intent signals be a trigger as well as some of the other triggers that we have within Cognism, which will also prioritize accounts for reps, which are things like we know if a company is hiring certain roles, that for us is a really good signal that they might be looking to buy a tool like ours. And also if the company's just raised a round of funding, that's also a great signal for us too.
Wow. So that's a pretty sophisticated machine. That sounds pretty glorious based on where you guys are at the moment. Can you give me a couple of things that you learned along the way? Because I can't imagine it was easy to get to that.
Hire really good RevOps.
Okay.
But no, in all seriously, we started on spreadsheets. So we started analyzing all of this stuff just on spreadsheets and looking. So you want to look at customers and customer lifetime value, and also deal size, not just getting the deals in. So all of these things and factors you should be looking at if you want to paint like a true picture of who you should be going after. And you can just start on spreadsheets, export the data, do the data analysis. We quite clearly came to our first ICP iteration was just literally, these are the RAG industries, red, amber, green, that we should be going after, company sizes, and these are the job roles, and that was it. We've got to this because we've been able to hire someone who's able to build these types of models, including we have a data science team who they've been working with, using our data and using our CRM infrastructure. And now we've just had a couple of record months of revenue, and a lot of that outbound has accounted for 60%, which it never has done before. But it's a lot to do with the fact that we're building much smarter lists now. So it's progression, but you can start with Excel. I guess don't think just because it's hard, don't do it. Just find a way to do it in, the least effort.
Love that. Very cool. Well, RevOps is becoming one of the most prized roles in any, particularly SaaS growing company. It sounds like you guys have got to pretty much where you need to be, and that Bombora integration is very cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that come to fruition. All right, Alice. Well, look, we're nearly up for time. I always like to ask, that you've already revealed quite a few amazing things that people can already take away. If there was one thing you could say to people out there to stop doing, what would you say? What would you advise people to stop doing right now?
This is one of my biggest learnings actually in my career, has been so many of my ideas have stopped before they got started because I didn't know how to scale them. And the best things I've done in any role have been the unscalable. So don't ever let scaling the idea of being able to scale an idea be the thing that prevents you from doing it. Just do it and then find a way to scale it. Because if it works and there's loads of demand, your CEO is not going to get mad at you because you suddenly created a good problem to solve. So just always think about how you could test out an idea without preventing the need to scale it be something that stops you doing it, basically.
Oh, I love that. I mean, I kind of do this on a daily basis, and it does drive people mad sometimes. Just start thinking of an idea, it works, but then, it's about breaking stuff and moving fast and then learning how to scale beyond there. I think too many people are afraid about the aftermath and what might happen before the ideas even come to fruition. So hats off to you for being brave and for trying stuff and maybe breaking stuff along the way.
Yeah, we've definitely done that.
Awesome. So look, over here at Reach Desk, obviously we are known for direct mail and gifting. Love to know what's the best thing you've received in the post yourself?
I think it was actually recently from you guys, a book. It was all about women in tech. I think it was. I need to read it properly, but it was just really well timed gift, and it was rewarding women in business and tech. And the fact that it was a book, very personalized note. I think it just hit a chime with me. It was just a nice gift to receive. So yeah, that would probably be. I don't get many, so anyone wants to give me more, then
send Alice some gifts, send Alice more stuff in the mail. Also, I think that might have been something we were running for International Women's Day, perhaps.
Yeah, sounds like
but yeah, I'm glad. Well, it's nice to hear that came from us, and I hope you enjoy the book. Cool. Well, Alice, the final thing for me, how do people find you? I mean, are you on LinkedIn? Any specific channels where people can go? And I know a lot of people hang out in Clubhouse these days, so I don't know if you're on there.
I'm on it, but I have to admit, I haven't actually joined a talk yet, which is really bad. So probably not best there. LinkedIn is where I guess I'm hanging out, posting, engaging. So yeah, come to LinkedIn.
Very cool. Very cool. I've actually, I've been on Clubhouse as well, but I haven't actually watched anything myself. So maybe I need to go and find something and get going. So it's the new rage. Alice, thanks a lot for joining me today. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. I've certainly learned a few things. I've actually written down a few notes to take back to my team. So thank you so much for sharing. And we'll speak soon.
Thanks, Alex.